Gentlemen, the time has come once again to discuss things.
Hi everyone, welcome to another episode of Geeky Gentlemen, or as the show is now called, the Green Lantern Show podcast. I'm Super2, joining me today is...
Steve.
So people listening right now, I'll apologize in advance. I caught a cold, but I really wanted to get the episode recorded, so you'll just have to deal with me sounding a bit off. Sorry, not sorry. So, you know, we talked to a bunch of shit last week. We're really up in this show, and I gotta just say now, fucking hate this show. I can't stand this shit. This is garbage. How could you leave me on such a great cliffhanger of the Sinestro reveal and then just end like that's not okay, man?
I was on the edge of my seat. I think I messaged you right after I finished watching it. It was so fucking good.
Yeah, Sinestro, like, I remember, again, I didn't watch the trailer, I just saw people, like, reacting to it and posting little images or little clips here or there, and like, I saw the trailer, and going into the show, I was a little like, I'm gonna watch it either way, because I'm curious about it, but I did have some reservations about just the idea that they were gonna be kind of, like, ashamed that they were making a superhero show, or yada yada. And so, like, when we get a look at Sinestro in the trailer, I think someone had the best summation of it. It's like, yeah, he's pink, but in the same way that, like, white guys get pink, you know?
He's like sunburnt, yeah.
Yeah. But, like, then once you actually see it, you know, in the brief scenes that we get here, and I'm assuming we'll get a little bit more next week, it looks just like a more natural, like, skin tone pink. We got the poster reveal for him after that episode aired, and he looks even, like, more robustly pink, so it might just be like a lighting thing for that particular scene or something, I don't know. But they don't, it doesn't seem, especially with just everything that happened at the end of that episode, the charge that they're, running away from some of the more cosmic aspects of Green Lantern doesn't really seem to necessarily hold up. It's still at the margins, but I mean, the episode ends with Hal charging the ring, putting on the suit, flying out of Earth orbit, visited an alien planet, and going to a sci-fi prison to meet his alien boyfriend. There was quite a bit happening there.
Yeah, I mean, this episode proves a point about how with TV shows you do usually have to give them a few episodes. In the case of Star Trek, you have to give them a couple seasons before things really start getting where it needs to go. So, like, it's hard to watch a single episode of a TV show and be like, this is definitively what the show is, without giving it a little bit more time. And it's funny just like how quickly this became everything people complained that it wasn't if they had just given it a second episode. I kind of compare this with all of the talk about Sinestro and the space prison and the costume and the Manhunters and all that stuff that I'm sure we'll get to. It watches to me like the kinds of stuff we were doing with more grounded superhero comics in like the late 90s, early 2000s, that kind of Marvel era of everything's just going to be kind of gritty and realistic. When Iron Man became Secretary of Defense for George W. Bush, and he just never wears the costume, and he's just always doing political machinations. Or in Brubaker's Cap, when he's just roaming around doing espionage shit. Or even when Daredevil in the middle of Born Again loses his costume in his house and he's just bumming around for an issue or two. Like there's quite a few examples where, like, even in comics we kind of just become more gritty and realistic, and all of the fantastical stuff just kind of happens on the margins of where the character is operating, and this episode felt the most like that. Like, I could very easily see if this was like the 80s and we were just doing, like, instead of Mike Grell's Green Arrow, we were doing Mike Grell's Green Lantern, this is what it would be. It would just be like down to earth, doing something gritty and more violent, and the superhero stuff is all still happening, but it's less the focal point. But that said, I really appreciate how much this episode clarified the mystery. Because the first episode sets up a really good basic conflict between the people in this town acting strange and the alien exploding himself in the dead bodies, and Hal just being like, something doesn't feel right. And then this episode actually starts answering questions that I didn't quite know I had, and setting up exactly what the stakes of the investigation are. And it actually moved quite a bit faster in that direction than I thought it was going to. Like, I thought we were going to have to wait like 3 or 4 episodes before I understood what the hell the mystery was about. But no, episode 2 just rolls around and, like, oh, I completely understand the stakes and what we're looking for and what exactly is supposed to be happening.
It is very impressive in that way, for like for being a modern TV show. You know, we had the era where, like, TV was the new prestige format, and then so everyone started running to TV, but they didn't know how to actually make TV, so they're just making like 8-hour or 13-hour movies.
Mm-hmm.
And that shit got old quickly. So this is still, you know, it's still in that prestige HBO format, but it is treated more like a television show. So you're actually getting some, like, payoffs and reveals pretty early on. And again, for me, knowing, like, kind of the behind the scenes of, or like the inside baseball of why this got made the way it did, it's a bit surprising to me that they went as cosmic as quickly as this. Not only is it an alien, right? Because, like, that's generic enough. That's like your X-Files and stuff. It's an alien deeply connected to Green Lantern lore. We're not just getting an alien, right? We're getting an alien robot that was created by the Guardians and wiped out. Like, we got so much lore in this episode. And the fan speculation is the people that kidnapped John, the aliens that kidnapped John and tried to recruit him. People are like, well, that's the Red Lanterns before they become the Red Lanterns. Like, they, and people are pointing out that before the one guy Hal was interrogating in the last episode blew himself up, he says that he asked, what do you even want? And his answer is vengeance. So that theory seems to have some meat to the bones. There's quite a bit of cosmic shenanigans more affecting this small town than I was expecting to get at all this season, much less this early on in episode 2. I was kind of expecting, like, okay, it'll be a mystery, but it's going to be like a more grounded, you know, like low-key alien invasion kind of thing. But no, they seem to be pulling out the stops. Like, Manhunters, you know, episode 2 is pretty crazy. To get that, and it's all tied in with Abin Sur and shit too.
They also kind of flip the political context of the first episode a little bit, because in the last episode we talked about this idea of, like, mysterious aliens hiding among us in rural America, being shot down by your white militia bros who are worried about aliens, and it kind of created this expectation of, like, are the aliens reflective of just, like, immigrants and the militia dudes are the bad guys? And kind of, sort of, but by this episode, when you realize, oh, hang on a second, the aliens are there because they're looking for a manhunter. How did the militia guys know how to shoot them? Well, the militia guys have some sort of deep pockets that allow them to have alien detectors, which is not even a question I really had at first, even though I very clearly should have. And suddenly this setup becomes a whole lot more complicated. I really appreciated the scene in the hospital between Hal and the sheriff, where she gets to finally say her piece, and she's like, no, the problem with what you do is you're legitimizing this guy having authority when he shouldn't. And that's why you need to go through me. And I liked how earnest that was, and I liked how clear the show was at that point of like, this is a weird, suspicious small town, but everyone's not an idiot. That there is some agency here. There is some, like, even the people who are part of this community understand that something's going wrong. They are not just a prop for a theme. And I was really surprised by how much time the sheriff and Hal got to kind of just banter, and how quickly the sarcastic banter gave way to some really good parallels between the two. Like, those two seem to have more in common with each other than Hal and John do.
Yeah, for sure, and I think that's really interesting. John gets quite a bit more to do in this. I don't remember if we were
Dude
recording.
gets wrecked in this episode.
But he's got he's scrappy as fuck though, so that's cool. Well, like it. I don't remember if we were recording this part last week, but we were talking like, oh, watch episode 2B. I need you to go back to my apartment and get the fucking lantern for me. And that's literally what this is about.
It's literally what he does.
So that was really funny. But then you just get like this whole new like secondary interesting dynamic to it, where Hal Jordan lives in a mansion, but it's like empty as fuck. It's just, and then he's got a pet alien plant named Earl. Oh, I love that. But
I like the house
so
as a
cool shit.
metaphor for Hal, of like all of this heap and prestige thrown onto him, but inside he's just hollow.
It's so deep. It's so deep. Oh. Particularly with like the pocket dimension too, where he like reaches in there and it's just, you gotta feel around for it. It's just, again, the weirdness of this episode was pretty fucking legit. I wasn't expecting them to do this. Like, a lot of people, I'm getting all the takes online, and people are like, oh, why would they make the costume like this wearable thing? I'm like, because people spent 15 years talking about how shit the 2011 costume was for being fully digital. Which is funny to think back on, because, like, I don't know, man, for all the shit that movie got, I'm just thinking about, like, fucking Civil War with Robert Downey Jr.'s floating head, and just everything in those last two Avengers movies, not even getting into the post-COVID shit. Like, Green Lantern 2011 now looks like a fucking visual masterpiece compared to some of the shit that's happened in the MCU.
It had color, it's true.
Well, not just color, like legitimately, just like the CG body floating head dynamic. I think,
Yeah.
I think that Green Lantern looks a hell of a lot better than some, maybe not like collectively as a whole movie, but at least just some isolated shots. The floating head syndrome seems way worse in MCU stuff ever since everyone started getting a fucking nanotech costume.
Oh no, I
So
mean,
you're-
absolutely. I mean, I think the Green Lantern movie thing, the best thing you can say about it is they had really, really good CGI artistry. They just had very poor direction on set as to how to integrate it. So all the work looks worse than it actually is.
Perhaps, but like, I don't want to get into the movie right now. Just my wider point is, like, 15 years were spent mocking the movie for doing a digital costume. And I've seen the behind the scenes of that film, and they've talked about it. Like, we tried to figure out how to do a practical costume, but if it was supposed to be a projection of the ring, the only path forward was to do a digital costume.
Hmm.
And so like you really don't have a choice. Anything you make for an actor to physically wear is going to look like a physical object before it looks like a projection from the ring that the actor has put on. It is going to look like a costume before it's going to look like a construct. That's just like a restriction of live action. And so, I don't know what they were expecting. If you spend 15 years bitching about it, and then you're gonna get a live action costume. It's maybe a little weird that he just like keeps him in a fucking hanger in his closet, but like that's also just from the old comics. That's what he used to do. So it's not without some level of precedent. Um, it's hokey, but eh.
And again, like I feel like this is a show that very clearly is thinking through all of its decisions like a classic prestige TV show should. So the fact that it's a physical costume, on some level, yeah, it absolutely is a restraint of people clowning on the Green Lantern movie, about the star of the Green Lantern movie refusing to let the Green Lantern movie die. So there was just no way they were going to get around that. But they treat the costume, or at least John does, and the show does thematically, they treat the costume like a uniform. They treat the costume like a thing a soldier would talk about with their uniform. And John has a kind of reverence for it, and you wouldn't get that scene otherwise where he's holding up the uniform in the mirror, imagining what he looks like in it and what that's supposed to mean for him if it was a construct. Like, you need that to be a physical costume to do that moment.
Yeah. And so I quite liked that scene. I like that John just starts to like trauma dump on any like non-adult he can find. um,
Just explaining his fucked up childhood.
my dad used to shoot apples off my head. Hey, plant. I used to like hamburgers too.
He's like Heath Ledger's Joker. Do you want to know how I got these emotional scars?
Yeah, no, that's just so funny. So no, I quite like that John gets a lot more to do in this one. I would say last episode was much more like focused on Hal. And this one seems like John took. I would say this one's about 50-50.
Mhm.
Between John and Hal. Like they're the co-protagonists, so it's kind of hard to say who gets more screen time when and stuff. But like I feel like as far as development and getting to like just move the plot forward, I feel like John was a big agent in this episode too. Whereas last episode he was kind of playing catch up with Hal the whole time. Um, and Hal's playing catch up with the fucking sheriff. And do you think the alien detector's plot element here is like the plot kind of running away with itself? Do you think like it's starting to form plot holes? Do you think that there's legitimate like character dynamic and kind of duplicity going on? That's more
No,
the explanation.
I think there is something deeper there. I mean, I think the way a lot of Lindelof shows go is like the things that you expect to not be relevant end up being super relevant. I mean, this is the guy who made Lost after all, so every little detail is pointing towards something, or else he wouldn't bother mentioning it. Whether or not the reveal is ultimately satisfying is a different question, but I think that there is a lot of thought being put into the kinds of clues that Hal picks up on, versus the stuff that we might just be kind of ignoring later on, or things that don't feel like they're important yet but will feel important later. The alien detector thing is cool because it it brings up a point that I didn't even think about in the first episode, which is how did anybody know to shoot those guys? And I like that because I remember in that first episode, I was just focused on the idea of like, how is Hal going to get this guy to confess that he's an alien? And the show does such a good job of making that like your tunnel vision conflict in that episode that you just ignore all the other circumstances around the shooting at the school, never even thinking about the fact that, well, hang on, he was with people. How the fuck did they know who he was with and who to shoot? And then this episode very clearly addresses that with the alien detector thing. And I like that Hal's not afraid to just walk up to that dude and say, hey, what are you doing here exactly? And he's being really direct. And of course it bites him in the ass here when he gets shot. But I like that the mystery is revealing itself very naturally, but we're not watching characters sit on their cards until it's the most dramatic moment to reveal something. And I like that every time something comes up, people are just talking about it and moving on to the next thing, and it kind of keeps the mystery fresh. And I like that the show is able to do that while still kind of maintaining some of its tension with its characters. Like with Hal and John, when he gets kidnapped by the aliens who want him to find the Manhunters, they're very clear about why they picked John and not Hal to do this, because they don't trust Hal. And they plant the seed in his head, not that they didn't need to do much of it, to not trust Hal. And then when John gets back, he very clearly has started trusting Hal less. But instead of holding that information close to his vest, he just says it. And it's a good demonstration of, regardless of whether or not John trusts Hal, which seems to be even more in question by the end of this episode, he respects the chain of command, and he respects what he's supposed to be doing here, and he respects that Hal's a Green Lantern and he's not. So he's going to give him any information that he has. And the fact that he's obligated to do that becomes the source of more tension, as opposed to just the cheap drama of why aren't characters talking to each other.
Yeah, the fact that they just dropped that right away was so refreshing to me, because I cannot stand, like, it's fine enough, but it's just such an overused trope of the misunderstanding, or the idea that if characters just fucking talk to each other, the whole problem's solved, you know?
Yeah.
It gets old real quick. So the fact that, like, he clearly thinks about it, and, like, it's good that he has conflict about it, but just that he's willing to say it is, I think, such a good move and a good direction.
Mm-hmm.
So I really did appreciate that. I'm trying to think what else was... Oh, okay. So I think the big, like, you know, clue that's staring everyone in the face, and that is probably the most talked about from this episode, was the empty, unused hospital. And what the fuck that possibly means. And that I found fascinating. So, what are your theories on the empty hospital?
I'm wondering if it's not a situation of this town has one manhunter. I wonder if there are tons and tons. And the manhunters, having multiplied, are building up this town to the closest proximity of being a town. And the only people that don't know are the ones that are like transplants from other areas, like the sheriff. So, like, maybe it's just a half manhunter, half people town. And that's also what the militia guys are kind of picking up on, is like, this town is filled with manhunters, and they're just taking over slowly but surely. But no one really knows who is and isn't a manhunter.
That's kind of the theory I'm leaning toward too. Is like a good portion, if not the entire town, is all just manhunters. That, like, we're gonna uncover a fucking factory of them or something at some point here. And, like, my lean is that the militia side of, you know, with that conflict of authority, my initiative is that the militia is the manhunters, and that they're trying to, you know, rebuild themselves up because they don't want to be wiped out by the Guardians, or the Guardians' lackeys in the case of the Green Lanterns. So they're trying to, you know, take over, keep this town quiet, but also just get rid of the heat that's on them, kind of thing. That's where I'm leaning on it.
I wonder too, because the first scene of this show is John watching Hal reveal his identity to the world. And in the hospital scene, the sheriff knows the vague background of Sinestro as if it's like a matter of public record that you can just look up online. And I wonder how much of how Hal is treated in the town and how much the fact that his secret identity isn't a secret anymore becomes a part of a problem because he's just volunteering all this information, not only about his life, but about Green Lanterns and the Green Lantern Corps at large. And maybe they're able to do just enough to kind of trick him into thinking the mystery is one thing and not something else, and kind of sow that bit of mistrust. I do like the idea that like kind of like you see in a lot of superhero comics when the hero decides to reveal their identity before they realize it's a mistake. It's like you don't think about the social repercussions of now everyone just knows and your private life doesn't exist or your private life can be mined for things. And I like that potentially could be something that's weaponized against Hal here in a way he's probably not expecting because he's been out publicly for like 20 years by this point.
Mm-hmm. Well, I mean, it's interesting because the justification for that usually is, well, my loved ones and stuff, but like Hal Jordan's such a fucking loner.
Yeah, he's got no loved ones.
So it is kind of odd that like Jon Stewart, who has lost like I think 2 separate love interests to attacks because everyone knows his identity, is more famous for coming out. Like that's one of his early issues is not only am I gonna be a replacement Hal Jordan, but I'm gonna abandon the secret identity. Everyone's gonna know that it's me, kind of thing. I remember seeing that cover years and years ago. Is basically one of those big old talky comic book covers. And so it's funny that like Hal has kept the secret identity in the comics all these years, but like he has the least kind of stake in it compared to like everyone else that's ever had a reveal.
Did Hal's identity go public after he became Parallax? I forget.
I
feel like everyone knew Hal was Parallax after he died, but I might be wrong.
I don't. If they did, it's not like brought up consistently by like civilians in the Kyle Rayner run, where like most of the fallout from that was happening. Like the problem here is so many people that like by the 90s, like secret identities stopped really being like much of a thing to mine a ton of drama out of. And so, Hal Jordan is Parallax and stuff, and like everyone just calls him Hal because you can't call him Green Lantern at that point. There's fucking 4 of them now. So it's just like all of the characters call him Hal, but we're so steeped in just other superhero characters. So I don't recall, but I'm gonna lean toward no, just because like that's not a plot point when he comes back. I'm pretty sure that he has to like reestablish a secret identity. So I'm gonna lean toward no.
I think you're right, because when Johns brings him back, there is no question about Hal being Green Lantern, so he probably didn't have a secret identity. For some reason, I thought like after he sacrifices himself in 0 Hour and saves the universe, everyone's like, Hal Jordan was the greatest human ever, or something like that. Or maybe that was just among superheroes or something.
Yeah, it's more among superheroes, because like they make the Eternal Flame where Coast City used to be and all this stuff, and like,
right.
Hal gets a statue and da-da-da-da-da.
Right.
But the statue has a mask on it.
Okay, all right, never mind. For some reason, I thought of it the other way. That's totally fine. The only reason I bring that up is because I know a lot of people have already speculated that Hal's possessed by Parallax. And the question of how far does that go back? Like, does it go back to when he revealed his identity? Does it go back to when he stopped backing up his consciousness? Or are we currently in the midst of watching Hal Jordan become Parallax or something like that? Given how this show is going, I don't think it's probably going to benefit to speculate on things we know happening in the comics being replicated here. But I do find it interesting.
People are really, really hoping and praying, and I think it's gonna be there's going to be some people that are pretty salty. I think we might be looking at a why wasn't Tom Cruise Iron Man and Doctor Strange 2 kind of situation.
Right, yeah. Just people getting too invested in their own fan theories, yeah. Part of why I find it interesting, though, is we started with talking about Sinestro at the beginning, but I kind of want to circle back to that. Part of what I thought was interesting was when Sinestro shows up at the end, and he's like, the Manhunters are the second greatest threat, and then he asks about Jon Stewart. Obviously, there is some sowing dissent here, and there is some probably greater reason why Sinestro knows about Jon Stewart and what kind of conflict that's going to unveil. But I also just found it really interesting that this entire show so far has been about Hal refusing to train Jon, about Hal being unwilling to relinquish the Green Lantern mantle, about Hal being basically hollow inside. And the one guy telling him to worry about Jon Stewart was the guy who got replaced by Hal Jordan and usurped his mentor and didn't and ends up in jail, and he didn't get trained by him and all that stuff. So I think it's really interesting that in Sinestro, he is seeing in Jon Stewart what Hal was to him, the rookie he had to train and the guy that usurped him. So obviously he's going to view Jon Stewart as just Hal Jordan's Hal Jordan.
Yeah, no, I think that's fantastic. Like playing on those fears, very very loaded word with Green Lantern characters. And I think it's so fascinating because what we haven't talked about at all so far is the fucking bird.
Oh yeah, that's so cool. I love the bird.
Yeah, because like they make a really big deal about it, and it's so funny how people get like so wrapped up with like statements, like this is a whole power scaling thing in comics, right? Where like someone will say, it's in one of the animated movies. I think it's in First Flight. Like, if you were really a Green Lantern, or if you weren't like worthy of that ring, no power in the universe could have forced it on his finger.
Yeah, that's
shit.
in First Flight.
Yeah, there's just always like, no, you could never remove a Green Lantern's ring. Meanwhile, Batman's like, yoink, just constantly like. There's all like this lore shit, but like lore always like just falls to what's cool in the moment for the story. And so what's cool in the moment for the story here is Jon not only creates the construct, but it lasts after he takes the ring off, after he gives it back to Hal, and while he's been unconscious. And I think that's just so fucking fantastic, but it leads in very well with that idea of Jon's replacing Hal. He's his better,
I also really like, sometimes I like when stories just get to show off a little bit or just like gesture towards the audience of like, we know what the fuck we're doing. I really like the bit where after all of that's happened and he shows back up to Hal's place with the lantern, Hal's just like, what the fuck's up with the bird? Like, it's gotta mean something if you thought about it all this time. And Jon's like, it's just a bird. I really like that because instantly, like, yeah, it could just be a bird, but definitely not. It definitely means something.
Yeah, and we might get something for that. I love the way that the episode opens too, with like, I'm gonna train you how to fly. Gives him the ring. Okay, now fly. It's just nothing. And I love that about it because the thing that I think sold me on becoming a Green Lantern fan was the idea that, like, the ring can create anything. The only limit is the user's imagination. And you're watching First Flight, so First Flight gets another mention. The weapon has the same weakness that every weapon has. Its user. It's just like, that's just so fucking sick as a concept. So, like, when people go, oh, Green Lantern comics are boring with Hal, all he makes is fucking, like, boxing gloves or stuff. I'm like, no, you're right. Like, it can get quite boring, but the concept, I feel that complaint in and of itself is fascinating, because what they're arguing is that the concept is so fucking cool. Why does he only make fucking hammers and boxing gloves? But like, anytime anyone writes Green Lantern, it's like, okay, what's he gonna make? oh, it's gonna be a really, really big laser beam or gun or whatever. It's just, like, well, fuck your imagination, shit, isn't it?
It's a little bit like people writing the Riddler and they're just not good at riddles. Like you can
Yep.
just feel it through his voice.
Yep.
There is one thing that I was disappointed by in this episode, and it's the only thing that disappointed me. You're set in 3 different time periods, and you couldn't flash back or flash forward to even one of them in this episode. Come on.
Especially with the way that episode 1 ended, not getting anything for that sucked.
And it seems really obvious that next episode that's going to be rectified. It seems like next episode, I don't know if you watched the teaser for the next episode, but it's going to be all about. Okay, yeah, it's going to focus more on how Jon Stewart got to be our Lantern trainee. So it's going to have flashbacks and current day stuff. So they'll do more of it. It's just, I was kind of bummed that this entire episode took place in 1 year when the first episode bounced around as much as it did.
Yeah. And it'll be interesting to see how that all works itself out. I am hoping for more stuff in that final that current year season. That would kind of suck if we don't get any of that until the mystery of the main of 2016 is solved or whatever. Which, like, conceptually it can't be, because the problem with, like, the everyone's a manhunter theory or the cops a manhunter is like, well, I guess maybe, but then again they just fucking sat on it for 10 years. Like, what happened?
And not to compare too much to a show written by other people, but given that it is such a massive source of inspiration, the first season of True Detective, not the third one that this one's clearly pulling from, but the first season of True Detective takes place across multiple timelines also, and there's a mystery in the 90s that's being recapped in, at that point, the present day, where the 2 detectives are just like talking to internal affairs about what happened all those years ago. And the mystery in the 90s doesn't get solved in the 90s. They think it does, but it doesn't. And halfway through the season, you stop flashing back to the 90s and you're just in the present day, going back and retracing the steps of the investigation. So if it's in the True Detective mold, then it is very possible that the current day 2016 stuff is only like half the season and the rest of it's in the future.
That's possible, yeah. I don't know. That would be interesting if they, like, think they solve it somehow and then it all just kind of goes awry.
Or they just give up, like they can't solve it or something.
Yeah, maybe. I mean, again, we are only 2 episodes in, but I mean, it is 8 episode season. Which makes me think of another thing. Morrison released their thoughts on the pilot, and they said some stuff that I certainly agree with, but I just thought, like, the example they chose was really, really funny. Because they argued that, like, this really shouldn't be on TV, it should be a movie. The franchise, the characters deserve a movie to, like, really explore the full breadth of what is capable of the Green Lantern ring. The series should be just as big as Star Wars or Star Trek. I'm like, yes, just as big as Star Wars or another television franchise.
The Morrison thing kind of annoyed me, because, like, okay, first of all, I think Grant Morrison has kind of ceded their ability to talk about storytelling or art now that they're a shill for AI. Like, the second Morrison was like, AI is a brand new consciousness and we haven't taken it seriously. You know what? Your brain's cooked. I don't need to hear your take on stories anymore. But assuming that you had anything of value to say after doing that, why is every big person's critique of the show just, I wish it was a different show? Like, you can't just keep relying on this notion that I didn't like it, I would have liked it better if it was a different show, as a criticism against the show. You can say I'm not going to continue watching it because it's not my kind of show, or you could say I would have preferred Green Lantern done this way, and so I have no interest in it being done this way. But a criticism of the show is not, I wish it was a different show.
Yeah. No, I tend to agree. I thought it was like pretty funny to cite a famous sci-fi television series to
No
say that
kidding.
the series should be a movie. And again, like it, I'm as a Green Lantern fan, I'm a bit torn on that because part of my fear is yes, this being a very successful show is ultimately good for the character, and it'll mean I'll get more Green Lantern stuff. And I've really enjoyed like getting to see people kind of get introduced to the lore in fits and starts.
Mhm.
But it also does make me wonder of like, well, does that mean it's going to be locked into just being a television property now? Like, can we legitimately now make a Green Lantern movie if we've got the television, the prestige television series story about within
I
that context?
I think because we know Jon Stewart's gonna show up in the Superman sequel, and Guy Gardner was already in the first Superman movie and is also going to be in this TV show. I think there's a good chance that a Green Lantern movie is kind of a lock, especially because after Supergirl both bombed and was panned, the second this show came out, everyone was like, all is forgiven. That
Yeah.
surprisingly, the Green Lantern show is the thing that united everyone towards this vision of the universe. Um, at least if you were optimistic about it or hopeful for it. So I think your chances of a Green Lantern movie seem likely. I think the trouble you might run into, and maybe this is part of the reason some audiences are frustrated with the show. I think the trouble you run into is this is very much its own take on the lore.
Mm-hmm.
And if I was in charge of making a Green Lantern movie, I would want to have my own take on the lore. And being handcuffed by a TV show, we've seen with Marvel, can be really restrictive in trying to make a movie. Because the movie people are going to want to say the movie is the thing that matters more than the show. But if the show is the thing that you're building off of and you have to stay consistent with it, it can get real messy because the show has the opportunity to lock you in way more than a single movie can.
Yeah, I don't know. That's definitely like its own problem. I don't know if like Lanterns could continue as like the procedural, like mystery driven season of television every couple of years, and like we could get a Green Lantern Corps movie or something out of it that's like more, epic and has scale because the character is capable of both types of stories. But it's just, I think that's my biggest worry as like a fan of the series. But like I said, it has been nice to just get to see people like discovering the lore from the show. So like he charges the battery or he charges the ring off the battery in this, and so someone goes, wait, so the ring charges off the lantern, but what charges the lantern? And someone's like, oh, get ready for this, bigger lantern. And so and the best possible reply to that is, so then what charges the bigger lantern? Big old green fish. It's just so fucking good. There's just
But
something
one
so refreshing about just the like public consciousness not just being, oh, it's gonna be fun to make fun of this garbage series or whatever. Just, oh, it's so much fun.
I do also really like that this show is branching out the audience enough to do stuff like that because you're seeing a lot of people get into Green Lantern lore for the first time, but like this show is bringing in a wide audience of people that aren't even comic book or superhero fans. So like if you were big on Friday Night Lights and you really like Kyle Chandler, then this is the new big Kyle Chandler show. If you really liked Rebel Ridge, this is the next big Aaron Pierre show. If you really like True Detective, like I do, or you really like Lost, then you know what? This is capturing both of those vibes. Um, Tons of people liked the Watchmen show that had never even read Watchmen, and this is kind of a spiritual follow up to that too. So it's kind of fascinating how this show is able to kind of be the lightning rod to so many different fan bases, which is probably why the discourse can be so massive for it. But when it works, it's really nice to see that, and it's really nice to see people engaging with this from different ways. And all kind of coming away with this is a quality TV show and you can talk about it on multiple levels. And it's the kind of competence that feels like it just doesn't exist with the Disney Plus Star Wars shows or the Marvel movies, or the previous regime of DC shows, or DC movies, I mean, where everything was kind of controversial, where everything was people being mad about the tone this way or that way. This feels like it's not unimpeachable by any means, but it feels like it's well made enough that it's convincing a lot of the naysayers, which makes me happy.
Yeah, I think it makes a lot of sense that they took a franchise that had stumbled out the gate, because it is really as heartbreaking as it is as a Green Lantern fan to have like a movie that people just mock mercilessly, as like the first big introduction for the character to the world. The thing that I think hurt the most about it, that like no one ever really thinks about, is the DC universe, the DCEU, I guess, wasn't supposed to start with Man of Steel. It was supposed to be Green Lantern that kicked it off. And it was just such an absolute failure that like they just went running to Snyder, and even though Man of Steel was only a moderate success, they put like all their apples in that basket instead. So I think that's just one of the like heartbreaking things to think back on. So it's quite fun to get something new and have this, not be the big introductory movie like 2011 was supposed to be. 2011 was supposed to be like DC's version of Iron Man. But to have this kind of come out and like really win over general audiences and be a lot more cautious with its approach, and have to be more budget conscious, because I think they're still trying to make money back for what they lost on 2011. It's just like, I don't know, it's a good time. It's just nice to be in the zeitgeist, I guess.
One thing I did hear a few people mentioning that I didn't notice at first, but it's true now that someone explains it to you. But when Supergirl was coming out, there was such a massive push for Supergirl comics and Supergirl merchandise and advertising Woman of Tomorrow all over the place. And I'm kind of surprised that with how much positive buzz there's been with Lanterns, there's been no similar push for Green Lantern comics. Like when Superman and Supergirl came out, DC released a starter box set of like, here are all the basic comics you would need to like Supergirl or Superman, or here's just a collection of stuff that inspired this particular movie. They didn't do that with Green Lantern. They even did it with the Batman, but they didn't do it with Green Lantern, and that was kind of a shame, because there's a lot of Green Lantern stories that are perpetually in print, like most of the Jeff Johns stuff, but there's a ton more, particularly of John Stewart, that just does not see print. And it would have been really cool to see a collection of like, hey, Lanterns is coming out. Here's the best Hal Jordan, best John Stewart, best Guy Gardner, best Kyle Rayner story, all in one box for you.
Yep. That would have been nice. Yeah, no, like Supergirl was a pretty hard stumble for them. They put a lot into that, which is weird, because I feel like I didn't see any marketing for that movie. And I don't feel like I saw a lot of marketing for this, but being the big fan I was, I just knew it was coming. But now that this has like become so successful out the gate, who knows? I don't know. I did quite enjoy the episode, but I feel like we're at the point where we're barely talking about the episode. So
yeah,
a couple rapid fire final thoughts. Does Tom King secretly support J.K. Rowling's transphobia, and that's why he's putting Harry Potter so much into this show? You think that's what's going on? Have we found another reason to hate Tom King?
I think what's going on is that he's got two children that are like middle and elementary school aged, and kids like Harry Potter, and he's just writing what he thinks the kids like. I think that's all it is.
Well, I think because he has the line in the last episode, and in this one you see that he's taking a picture with the cast, and he's got pictures with George W. Bush and Obama. he shows this one to Barry and he shows this one to Ollie. It's one of my favorite takes.
That's hilarious. Someone found the Photoshop of the original photo of Biden and Obama together that they replaced Biden with Hal to make that photo, and I saw a tweet that was like, "Oh, I get it. The old person who is refusing to give power to the young people." That's so good.
I love it. I love Earl. Earl's a great pet for Hal Jordan. He is not responsible enough to take care of even a houseplant, but, you know.
I love that they just gave him Little Shop of Horrors as a pet in his backyard. That's pretty great.
It is pretty great. Mogo got a mention, which means Mogo is now canon, and I can die happy.
Woo!
Yay!
I don't know. We talked about it briefly last episode. I love the lantern design. It looks super sick. I love that it is just like an old school railroad lantern, and I like the yellow accents around it. It's very cool.
See, my problem with it is I don't like the gold accents. Because gold would be like one of those things that depowers it, but you know, whatever. I even when I'm like building my Lego shit, I actively try to avoid using any kind of yellow brick when building Green Lantern stuff, because I'll know, like, in my heart, and it would bother me.
You know, though, you actually should incorporate more yellow into your Green Lantern builds, because on a given day, if something disastrous happens and it breaks and it all falls apart, you can just blame the yellow impurity.
Ah, that's true. That's a good point. Maybe that's gonna be the headcanon from now on. Like, you saw me do the Mogo build. I don't think I managed it with Mogo, but I actively tried to avoid yellow, even inside of Mogo, in parts that like you would just not see ever.
You see, I wish you told me this when we were making the video, because I don't remember if you did or not, because I wasn't paying attention to that part.
Excellent. No one will ever know. You can just go back and watch the 4-hour stream and it'd be fine. Yeah. I don't know. But like, so I like the look of the lantern. It's interesting because it does just look more like an old railroad lantern, and it doesn't really mirror the symbol, which is what the comics have like moved to more and more, to the point where like the modern day lanterns look nothing like a green railroad lantern, which is what Alan Scott's thing was all based on. It's just evolved more and more to show like the abstract symbol. So I don't know, it's fine. I don't love it, I don't hate it. The detail I do like is that it's actually got the symbol on it isn't just a generic symbol, it perfectly fits the ring, so when he charges it, he actually inserts the ring into that part of the lantern. I thought that was pretty sick. I like that it locked in, you got that satisfying sound and the energy transferring into it. That was very cool. Yeah, for sure. Alright. Well, I don't that was all my like list of things. I don't know if the one dude's gonna be Atrocitus. I kinda doubt it, but we'll see what happens.
One last thing for me real quick is I was reading an interview with them about Sinestro and saying how they basically they want to do the thing everyone does with the cell. They want it to be Hannibal Lecter. They want him to just kind of be scheming behind the prison. And like, okay, yeah, that's all cool. But what I thought was interesting is in the episode where he shows up, that's all about manhunters. The prison that he goes into, with all of the winding white stairways and stuff, looks suspiciously like when Graham goes to see Hannibal Lecter in, you guessed it, Manhunter.
Man, that's why I hate that movie. Not a single fucking robot shows up.
I don't think that was on purpose, but I hope it was.
Some set designer out there is like, yes!
God, I hope so. I hope that dude gets promoted.
It's good shit. It's good shit. Alright, well, let's go ahead and wrap up then. What would you rate episode 2 of Lanterns?
I'm still kind of riding high off of this and the first episode, so I'm gonna give this 4 out of 5 John Stewart's running like Tom Cruise.
Yeah, okay, good. Yeah, I'll give this 4.5 out of 5. Mogo doesn't socialize. Alrighty. Well, that'll do it. Tune in next week. We'll continue down Lanterns, and if you're tired of the show, then sorry, I'm not.
This is a Lanterns hype cast now.
Yeah, always has been. And until next time, I'm the Philosopher.
And I am the Luddite.
And we are your geeky gentlemen, and we will be discussing